Good afternoon, everybody. And it was interesting just listening to that. It's good, you know, working for this incredible group and working for probably the most incredible company within the group and sort of getting used to it. It's good sometimes just to sit there and remember what an amazing thing we're doing. And it actually took me back to when I first started at Virgin Galactic. It was my first Virgin job. I think I was officially the first full-time employee. And I went to see Richard for a sort of interview, I think. And he told me what he had in mind for Virgin Galactic, and I remember standing there thinking, blimey, you know, that's pretty ballsy even for Virgin, you know, particularly coming from the man, I think, that said the best way to become a millionaire was to become a billionaire and start an airline. And I thought, well, you know, if that applies to airlines, it must sure apply to space lines. But you know, as I learned a little bit more about what the plan was and why it was, you know, it just struck me that this was not only a fantastic idea, an exciting idea, that it had every chance of success and could really change something for good. And that's what we want to tell you about this afternoon. But before I do that, I want to introduce my colleague Dave Clark. Dave actually has 2 world records we worked out this afternoon. The first is that he ran a marathon tied to 33 other people. And the second is that I think he probably sold more space tickets than anybody else in history. So,
thank you. Thank you again very much for having us here.
So watch out if you've got any money in your pocket.
We always like to start, anybody in the room, just please raise your hand if you think you'll be an astronaut in your lifetime. We have a few. 2, nice. I like to see that. Well, let me just start by explaining how we ended up here today, and a special thanks to Pat. A few years ago, we were at Richard's game reserve in Sabi Sands in South Africa, a beautiful place, and Stephen and I were there hosting a group of future astronauts. We do trips all over the world together, and at the same time, there was a group which Pat Hull here, who's one of the founders of this event, was supporting, which was a Virgin Unite trip to South Africa. And very early one morning, we overlapped, and I started talking to Pat, and I think we were both maybe feeling the effects of the night before. And I told him what we did with the space program, and he said, well, I want to be an astronaut. I said, cool, great. Maybe when you get home, we can set up a call and sort it out, or when do you want to do this? And he said, well, how about now? I said, okay, cool. So it was first thing in the morning, it was like 7 o'clock. We went back to his room to do the paperwork and sort everything out. And poor Bella, Pat's wife, was still in the shower. So there we are going through, you know, this paperwork to sign him up to go to space, and Bella walks out of the shower shocked because there's this random guy in the room. And she says, who are you? And I had the pleasure of saying, hi, I'm Dave, welcome to Africa. Your husband's going to be an astronaut. But without people like Pat, and along with Pat, I'd like to welcome Kelly Smith and Yanik Silver to the stage. Without these people, these are our future astronauts. They're the reason that we're here 7 years on. They're the reason that we are in the final stage of the space program, and that we'll be able to take people like you and everyone else in the world to space. So a round of applause for them. They really are. Without them, we'd be nowhere. They're the founders, they're the pioneers, they're the visionaries, they're the endorsers that make private companies like ours able to proceed. So what I wanted to do is just, for those of you that haven't kind of seen the progress of Virgin Galactic, explain the experience that these 3 future astronauts and the other 500 that have signed up, and hopefully many, many more to come, will experience. We have a model that I hope you saw earlier of our spaceship here. So our future astronauts will arrive at Spaceport America, which we're actually opening just over a month from now on October 17th in New Mexico. And they'll arrive there, they'll do 3 days of training. This will culminate in their boarding of the spaceship. So they'll wake up early one morning, they get into the spaceship, there's 6 of them, and there's 2 pilots. The carrier craft, which if you can't see here, we'll show you a video of later. The carrier craft, then the spaceship is fixed onto the bottom of the carrier craft. That fixed-wing airplane takes off like a normal airplane, and it flies all the future astronauts up to 60,000 feet. That's where Concorde used to fly. It's about double where normal commercial aircraft fly today. At 60,000 feet, the carrier craft releases that spaceship. You're going to free fall and glide away from the carrier craft until it's safe to ignite the rocket engine. Once it's safe to do so, you ignite the rocket engine and you begin this beautiful arc. You're going to fly away through the atmosphere. Now there's windows throughout the spaceship. We didn't originally design it like this, but since we began, we always had future astronauts like these guys. We had to design things around what they wanted. And they want a view of everything. So there's windows everywhere. They're on the sides, they're above you, they're in the ceiling, they're in the front. So as they fly this beautiful arc out of the Earth's atmosphere, they're going to look out and see that beautiful blue sky that we see every day turn to dark blue, to indiglo, to the jet black of space in just a few seconds, right in front of their eyes. As that rocket motor extinguishes, the inertia from that rocket burn leaves the rocket, leaves the spaceship, and the moment that happens, our astronauts can unbuckle their seatbelts and they'll float out of their seats. They'll enjoy weightlessness, something I think we all dreamed of since being little kids. They'll float around in space, looking back at Earth, looking back at the Earth's atmosphere. And then, and this is what makes this project so brilliant, at the apogee, or the highest altitude of the flight, the wings of the spaceship feather. What that means is they transform the structure of the spaceship from a fixed wing gliding airplane into a shuttlecock, into a feathered braking system, into an air brake. So, has everyone here played badminton? With a shuttlecock, when you throw it up into the air, it always falls down, bottom first. It falls down in a stable position, and it falls down slowly. That's exactly what our spaceship's going to do in space. It's a carefree re-entry. So as Earth's gravity takes over and it slowly pulls that spaceship out of space back towards Earth, when it gets to that outer limits of the atmosphere and you start hitting little molecules of air of the Earth's atmosphere, that slowly, just like a shuttlecock in badminton, it slowly forces the structure of the spaceship, the pilots don't have to do anything, into this perfect position where it just glides back through the Earth's atmosphere, constantly decelerating, and with all the passengers inside, lying down, comfortably absorbing the G-forces of the deceleration. Once you get to 60,000 feet again, those wings simply unfold, you become a glider, you make up for those 25 miles that you lost while you were in space, you cover those on Earth again, then you play around, you glide around for another 45 miles.
You see why he's our chief salesman. That's beautiful. I'm ready to buy a ticket.
I didn't get that whole spiel. He just
Sounds
said,
good. I'm really ready to, you know.
Yeah. And from there, you glide back home to Spaceport America, the same place you took off from.
Yeah.
No longer a civilian, but one of the world's future astronauts, or newest astronauts.
Do you have a video?
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Show the video.
Well, we've got...
We're gonna...
Yeah, let me, if we bring Stephen back up, before we show you a beautiful video of our latest progress, Stephen will just show you what it takes to get to the stage that we've gotten to, and how this is all possible.
Thanks, Dave. Is there a clicker for that? Yeah. Okay, so I think I had a few photos to show you actually. So maybe if we can get those up. So this is a story, and I don't know where the story really started. Maybe when Richard watched the moon landings in '69. It may be actually in 2003 or 4 when we were building this fantastic aircraft for Virgin Atlantic. Another way actually of making sure that our aircraft in the future are as efficient as possible using carbon composite techniques and so forth that were demonstrated in that the Global Flyer aircraft. And we found that the guy that was building the Global Flyer aircraft was also building a spaceship. So maybe it started then. Maybe it started actually in the 90s when Richard and Buzz Aldrin were waiting in Morocco to take off on one of the balloon trips. And we're talking about why it had been so difficult to unlock space to everybody. And we're doing little drawings on the back of napkins as to what it might take that actually look something like the spaceship we have today. But whenever it started, space was always going to be a natural virgin business. And I think Richard on the video said that, we love to take on conglomerates to get into their space, or into space in this case, and shake them up. And what better way of doing that in space? Because we've been in space for maybe 50 years plus now. The door was definitely unlocked by an extraordinary generation of people. But to date, only 500 people have been there. And yet space really, really matters. Already the way that we navigate, the way we communicate, the way we feed the world, the way that we know what's happening with climate change. None of that could be happening without access to space. But we can do a lot more. So we knew there was a great opportunity there. We also knew that, it was an area that the public had been served really badly. It had been kept in the hands of the few governments that had the resources to put people into space and weren't interested in you and me going there. there. So we thought we should do something about this. And we started to look, and we very quickly became aware that we had a big problem, because the technology that had been taking people to space since the 1960s, incredibly, really hadn't changed. And that's one of the things that maybe happens when things get locked up with governments, that technology just doesn't benefit from private sector research and innovation, and things don't progress. And so these big rockets, we quickly understood, would not be the basis for a thriving Virgin company. They're too big, they're too dirty, they're too expensive, and frankly, they're too dangerous. And we needed something to change. You know, we're great fans of aviation at Virgin, and when we look back at the history of commercial aviation, it's really evident that one of the things that made a huge difference was the presence of prizes. From 1906, when the first plane flew from London to Manchester, through to 1917, when Alcock and Brown flew the Atlantic, to 1927, when Charles Lindbergh flew the Spirit of St. Louis, all done because of the presence of prizes. And that flight, particularly the Lindbergh flight, you know, really lit the spark of the fire, which created the fire of commercial aviation, all due to a prize. And there was another guy in the United States, Peter Diamandis, a friend of ours, who said, well, if it could work for commercial aviation, why can't it work for space? And so with a few friends, he got together $10 million, a large amount of money, and created what was called the Ansari X Prize, and said, all you need to do to win this $10 million doesn't matter whether you work at Boeing or you're some guy working out of a garage in Richmond, Virginia. You know, if you can build a spaceship and you can put a man inside it, and you can take it to space and bring him back again, and do the same within the space of 14 days, within a period of 14 days, $10 million is yours. And that set a lot of people thinking, including this incredible guy here, Burt Rutan. Many of you may know his name. A real genius, built some of the most amazing experimental aircraft anywhere in the world in the last 30 years. And Burt had always thought he could probably do this. And he put his mind to it because of the existence of a prize. And as Dave has already said, he came up with some pretty important innovations. The first one was that rather than launching the rocket from the ground, he decided to launch it from the air. Here we can see Spaceship One launching from the air at 50, 60,000 feet. Means you have a lot less fuel on board. Also means if anything goes wrong in those first few seconds, you shut off the rocket motor, glide down to the runway, sort out the problem, and start again. That innovation alone meant that this system was probably hundreds, if not thousands of times safer than a ground-based rocket. The second thing he did was to look at a particularly suitable rocket motor, and this is ours in a test phase at the moment. It's a hybrid rocket motor, really good for the job we're doing. The most important thing about it is that it consists of very benign constituents, nitrous oxide and rubber in the case of Spaceship One. And you can control it, you can throttle it, you can turn it off. So another great innovation. And then the final innovation, as Dave explained to you, and I've got a rather ungainly photograph of our lovely spaceship here, with the wings in what Dave explained to you was the feathered configuration, or the shuttlecock configuration. And you can see there really well how those wings have rotated through up to about 65 degrees, meaning that the spaceship will always come down belly first, nice and gently, no input from the pilots, no computers. It really is a fail-safe way of the most dangerous part of space travel, which is actually coming home. And on the 10th of October, 2004, Spaceship One, this strange little creature, flew to space for the third time, actually, landed back at Mojave Airport with Brian Binney, the pilot, at the controls. And Burt Rutan, because of a prize with about $30 million of Paul Allen's money, had done what only 3 of the world's most powerful governments had done before. He'd put a man in space and brought him back and done it again. And commercialized the venture, and nobody better to do that than Virgin. And so Virgin Galactic was created, and we were off. Now, there's a story that I heard when I first joined Virgin. I don't know whether it's true, but when Virgin Atlantic was first launched in 1984, I don't think a huge amount of market research had been done. But Marketing Week in the UK thought this is a really weird thing for a record label to do, you know, to start an airline. We don't think anybody's going to want to fly on those aircraft. And they did a survey in the UK and said, you know, this upstart company, Virgin, a record label, is going to launch an airline. You know, who would really want to fly on an airline owned by a record label? And sure enough, the next week they published the results saying, yep, we thought so. 90% of people said they wouldn't like to do that. The following week, there was a letter from Richard in Marketing Week saying that means that 6 million people, 10% of the UK population, want to fly on my aircraft. I better buy some more. And the rest is history, of course.
Sorry, they also said with a name like Virgin, this airline will never go the whole way.
Thanks for that. With Virgin Galactic, we thought we ought to be a little bit more scientific, and so the powers that be at Virgin, said, great idea, Richard, sounds fantastic, technology looks good. Let's just make sure somebody wants to buy this, before we go and spend $200, $300, $400 million, whatever it's going to be. And so Dave and I were actually given the task of going out, starting a website, saying, look, we're going to start a space line based on this fantastic technology. We're going to give you the ride of your life. It's going to cost $200,000 to start with because we need it to be a commercially sensible price. Anybody interested? And we sort of sat back slightly nervously and were just overwhelmed by the response because people throughout the world want to experience space for themselves. And very quickly we raised the $10 million that Virgin asked us to raise to sort of prove that there was a readily available market. We now have about 500 of those people, some of the most extraordinary, lovely people I think we've ever met. They're all members of the most exclusive club on Earth, and they have really underpinned the whole sort of commercial case for this business. So without them, we wouldn't be here. And those people were really useful for us as well because we talked to them about what they wanted from their space experience. And they said, yeah, we want a rocket ride into space, of course. We want to experience that really high acceleration, 3 Gs and accelerating up to maybe 4 times the speed of sound. We want that. We also want to experience the joys of zero gravity. We want to be floating around the cabin. And of course, what we want most of all, I think more than anything else, is to get that life-changing, perception-altering moment that some of the toughest guys, have reduced some of the toughest guys on Earth to tears of seeing the Earth from space. And that was really useful information. It really pays to listen to your customers sometime, particularly, at the start of a project like this, because our initial thought was we would build another Spaceship One. It would be built to more commercial sort of standards. It would be built to be tougher. You'd have maybe 2 passengers in there, maybe one or 2 passengers. They'd get to space, they'd have the acceleration, they'd be in zero gravity, firmly strapped to their seats, and if they were just about able to turn their heads like that, they might get a glimpse of the Earth. And if we'd done that, it would have been a big mistake because that's not what our customers wanted. So we went straight to Plan B, and as you can see, we've built something much, much bigger, more technically demanding, more expensive, but it's going to give people just the ultimate experience of what it's like to be outside the Earth's atmosphere. And because we're air-launched, as Dave explained, when you've got a big spaceship, you need a big mothership. And this is our mothership. We've called it Virgin Mothership Eve, because as Richard said, if you're going to have a mothership, it would be rude not to call it after your mother. So she's called Eve. And this aircraft is phenomenal. I mean, I won't go on for too long, but it's the world's largest all-carbon composite aircraft. Nothing this big has been built out of carbon composite before. She can carry 35 tons to over 55,000 feet. She's a training platform for our customers because can do parabolic flights, so you can get some zero-G time in the cabin. She can also perform aerobatics to pull winding G turns up to 7 Gs. Nothing like this exists anywhere on Earth, and this plane is not only built, it's flown now about 72, 73 flights. Fantastic shot over there on a steep bank. Flight envelope is largely cleared, and so that piece of kit, which I think is going to transform aviation to a large extent because of the new techniques that have been employed to build, is ready to go. And of course, her main job is to carry Spaceship Two, and there you can see a close-up of how Spaceship Two fits under that big payload space. You can see it down the front here between the 2 fuselages. And that's this incredible vehicle on the ground. And Spaceship Two, which we've called VSS, Virgin Spaceship Enterprise, is one of the most remarkable flying vehicles in the world again, because this is a single vehicle which has got to keep 6 passengers and 2 pilots safe. It's got to be able to travel at 4 times the speed of sound. It's got to be able to act as a spacecraft in the vacuum of space. It's got to survive re-entry. And it's got to be a high-level glider, a high-altitude glider. Nothing like that exists anywhere on Earth, and we have built it. And it's now flown 15 or 16 times, and we are absolutely delighted with the performance. Now, another little story from commercial aviation quickly before I finish is that some of you may know that there's a good story out there about Pan Am. When they were looking to, they wanted a much bigger aircraft. They were flying the 707, and one trip was at the helm of Pan Am at the time, and said to his friend Bill Allen from Boeing, I want something much bigger, much cheaper, and if you build it, I'll buy it. And Bill Allen said back to him, yeah, if you buy it, I'll build it. And we had a very similar conversation going on between Richard and Governor Bill Richardson of New Mexico. Bill was a very entrepreneurial governor, knew that New Mexico had some really, really good natural attributes to provide a fantastic place for our headquarters, for an inland spaceport. And he phoned Richard up and he said, look, we want to do this. And basically, if you build me a spaceship, I'll build you a spaceport. Richard said, if you build me a spaceport, I'll build you a spaceship. And they have built us a spaceport. And that's a photo of Spaceport America in New Mexico, which is opening in a couple of weeks' time. It's one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen in a really stunning location, and it's going to be just perfect for all of our customers to come down and start this remarkable journey. And there is actually a picture of the world's first commercial spaceship flying over the world's first commercial purpose-built spaceport. So space matters, and we have a huge responsibility here because we need to get it right. Because if we get it right, then a lot can happen very quickly. You see that with other technologies, with mobile telephony, started as government technology, released to the private sector in a very short period of time, unimaginable innovation. And we think we can do exactly the same, transferring these remarkable machines that did such a great job, in the 1960s, to something which is suitable for the 21st century to take you and me to space. Now, if we get it right, then we're going to make money, and that's, of course, one of the things that is important in order to encourage others to come in and to get the costs down and to enable us to do more and more. And our business will start off as a space tourism business. Initially, it's going to be the suborbital trips that we've described. We would love to go on to orbital trips, so you'd be able to spend 2 weeks in a hotel in space. Our spaceship that we're building now will also be used for Virgin Galactic science services. There are researchers, scientists, educationalists all over the world that want to get a bit of space for microgravity research and for other types of research. And we're going to be able to offer that in an unparalleled degree of regularity and at a very, very cheap cost compared with what's there at the moment. Now, Virgin Atlantic has got a cargo department, and I think Virgin Galactic should have one as well. So, we're also looking at and thinking about plans to use some of the technology we have here, particularly the aircraft, maybe parts of the spacecraft, not to launch people into space, but to launch small satellites into space. And the more that we can do that with constellations of small satellites, the more that we can help solve some of the big problems or challenges we're going to face down on Earth in the next few years. And lastly, I know this is Richard's favorite, and I guess anybody that does a lot of flying will be your favorite as well, that if we get this first step right, that if we can prove that you can take people to space on a daily basis and keep them just as safe as they would be in an airline, and you can make money from doing it, then one of our long-term aspirational lovely goals is to be able to take people from London to Sydney or London to Los Angeles, not punching through the air in an aluminium tube using fossil fuel or even algae, but take them via space. The great advantage of that, of course, is that it's extremely quick. London to Sydney in maybe 2.5 hours, excluding security. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. So that's really where I want to end. I hope that's been a good canter through Virgin Galactic before.
Why Richmond Unite and come to Richmond, and how did this all, give us the visual.
Well, is this working?
Yeah,
It is.
Actually, it's so funny because we have Yanik over here, and that's how I actually got to know Richard. And I was involved with Yanik's group for entrepreneurs, and we were raising money for Virgin Unite. And I really got inspired by Richard, and actually, whether he knows it or not, he's kind of a mentor and inspiration for me, and I loved the things that he was doing. And I started doing some events with him, and I thought about Richmond, and I was like, why, I know we're a smaller city, and I'm like, why can't we do these kind of things? And so really, I just kind of got the idea of why can't we focus on ourselves, we get people together, have a great time raising money for charity, and enjoy the whole experience. And with Virgin, that is their whole thing. They're all about making it a pleasurable ride and the whole experience. So I learned a lot of that just being around and going around different events with Richard and the things they're doing. So I wanted to bring something to Richmond that we can be proud of, and it's no coincidence that we're calling it Richmond Unite after Virgin Unite, but that is the inspiration, and I really want to thank everybody for coming out here and participating. I know we've had fires, we've had hurricane, earthquake. I mean, I'm just so proud that everybody's showing up, and I hope
And you got President Obama in another place.
and he might show around too. But yeah, tonight I hope you guys are going to join us over there. I know it's going to be a wonderful event, but really this is, the whole Richmond Unite is really something I want to give back to Richmond so that we can really showcase the great things that are already happening here, and people get to be aware of the great charities in the Richmond area.
You give him a round of applause.
Thank you, though.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
him.
Good video. Thank you. Great.
So just, thank you. So with that, a huge thank you to you guys for being a part of this mission and changing the world in all the ways you're going to. Thank you, Pat, for being just the visionary and the idea behind this. And then for Richard, just a massive thank you, because it's because of the two of you and because of your life work that there's going to be 1,000 of those little mini movie conversations around town in the years to come in Richmond for a group of people that are probably some of the finest in the world. They're going to say, screw it, let's just do it.
Right.
And this day will serve as a memento.
I learned that from him. Screw it,
Thank
do
you.
it.
Cheers. Let's go to the live. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Great. Thanks very much.